segment of Showdown Saturday, technically coming out here on a Friday, hopefully uploaded before midnight Eastern here on Friday. It's a video format version of Showdown Saturday. We're going to discuss two different games in video format that I think are really significant for the upcoming week of NFL. It is week 13 upcoming, and there's a lot of big football games that are going to have a lot of massive playoff implications. So the way I'm going to approach this is different from the written articles that I was doing previously, where instead of just previewing two games, I'm going to preview the best game from each time slot. So 1 p.m., 4:25, 8 the Sunday night game, and the Monday night game, and tell you what I think is going to happen in those games and what to watch for in those games. The first game I'm going to discuss is in the 1 o'clock window, is the Los Angeles Chargers at the Cincinnati Bengals. I think this is a really intriguing game because we take a look at these teams. The Chargers had a lot of expectations, and at times they've looked really, really good this season. Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler have been a dynamic duo at times. However, in some other games they haven't, including last week at Denver where they got blown out 28-14. Just not a good performance at all by the Los Angeles Chargers offense. And the Chargers defense has been one of the worst in the league this year. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Bengals have been one of the most surprising teams of the year. Joe Burrow has taken a step up, in my opinion. He's playing very well. Jamar Chase has been a revelation as a receiver. And, Joe Mixon is continuing to chug along at running back. And the rest of the weapons on the Bengals offense is producing at a high level, which is really expanding the capabilities of the Bengals offense. But the Bengals defense, on the other hand, too, is playing very well. I mean, you saw what they did to Pittsburgh last week, and they blew out Baltimore on the road. This is a really, really good Cincinnati team. It's probably their best team in at least 5 years, probably since around 2014, 2015 in that area. I think this has a potential to be a pretty high-scoring game. The over-under right now is at 50, which is pretty high. Anytime you see an over-under in the 50s, that's indicative of Vegas believing that this is going to be potentially a shootout. And I think with two very young, exciting quarterbacks with a lot of young, exciting weapons around them, I think it's going to be an exciting game. It should be the most exciting game of the 1 o'clock window, and this is why I wanted to cover it. But to me, the X factor of this game is which defense is going to step up. Who can force Joe Burrow into some mistakes? You're going to see like a Derwin James be able to really step up and make some big plays. Or is it going to be on the other side with Justin Herbert making some big plays? Can you contain Austin Eckler? It'll be interesting what the Bengals defense can bring, and can they have a similar performance that they had against the Steelers and then a couple of weeks ago against the Ravens? I mean, obviously they got a pick six last week. I have a Big Ben out route pass, and we're just really dominant. And can they bring that same type of intensity? And furthermore, what type of team are the Los Angeles Chargers going to bring to Cincinnati? Is it going to be the team that we saw against the Browns and the Steelers, where they were moving the ball up and down the field, scoring 40-plus points? Or is it going to be the team that we saw against the Broncos that barely did anything in that game? So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. If I chose a player to watch for, I mean, I think it would have to be Jamar Chase. He really hasn't had a big game in 4 weeks now. You look at his fantasy stats, he hasn't gone above 13 points since, I believe, week 7. So it's been a while. He's been really targeted as wide receiver 1, which has opened up the rest of the field for guys like T. Higgins and Joe Mixon and the rest of those guys on the Bengals offense. But I'll be curious to see if he really returns to form this weekend as an explosive wide receiver, because I feel like some fantasy owners would really appreciate if he did. So in terms of my prediction for this game, I do have the Bengals winning this thing at home. I think it's going to be a really close game. I have them winning 34-31. I think this thing could go either way, and I think it's going to come down to a turnover or two by either side to determine who wins this thing and which defense can get the stop necessary to win. 4 o'clock window, I actually kind of want to discuss the game that most of you probably won't be able to see, but the Washington football team going to the Las Vegas Raiders. And these are two teams that are in really interesting positions. The Washington football team right now is 5-6, directly in playoff contention right now because the NFC wildcard race is really, really screwy at the moment. And the Las Vegas Raiders are 6-5, and they are on the outside looking in, but they still have a chance at both, not just the AFC wildcard, but the AFC West itself, considering how slow of a start the Kansas City Chiefs got off to. And this is almost an elimination game of sorts for both teams. The Washington football team has played really well as of recently. They are on a free game winning streak. Of course, they beat Tampa Bay, they beat Carolina, and then on Monday Night Football last week, they held on to beat Seattle. Of course, Seattle is a really struggling football team. They're 3-8. Russell Wilson's not 100%, but still to get the W on prime time, it's always a good thing. Antonio Gibson was really becoming a workhorse in that game. He had 27 carries, which if you look back at how they were playing early on in the year, they were questionably not using them as much as they probably should have. But now they are, and I think that's a huge deal for the Washington offense. I think it's going to help Taylor Heineke play a lot better moving forward. But on the other side, obviously, Las Vegas Raiders, we don't need to rehash everything they've gone through this year, but you do have to give them credit for coming back and winning a tough game on the road against Dallas on Thanksgiving afternoon, an overtime game, a game played with penalties, but they were able to get it done on that big stage, which I think shows some fight in a Raiders team and an organization that we haven't seen in a long time, because the Raiders are notorious for those second half collapses under their previous coach, John Gruden. But are they ready to turn over a new leaf? I think it's critical that they win this game in order to prove that they have turned over that. How I think the game will actually go, I think it kind of depends on what type of game it is. If it's a lower scoring defensive battle, that favors Washington clearly. Their defense is playing a lot better as of late. Going back to last year, they were a top 10 defense. Early on in the season, they weren't playing as well, but they're starting to get their groove back. Meanwhile, the Raiders are known for being more of an offensive team. And, of course, in this game, they're not going to have Darren Waller, your star tight end. So you're going to have to rely a lot more on guys like Hunter Renfrow on the outside and your new acquisition of Deshaun Jackson to help out Derek Carr. So can you make this into a shootout, which I think would definitely benefit Las Vegas? That remains to be seen. I think the type of game that this ends up becoming will determine ultimately who wins. To me, I think this game being out in the desert definitely benefits the Raiders. I think they, getting a couple extra days to rest. Remember they played all the way back on last Thursday on Thanksgiving, while the Washington football team played this previous Monday. So that's a whole 5 extra days of rest that the Raiders got for this game in preparation. So I think that's also going to become a massive factor for this game. I think all the signs to me looking forward to this game point to the Raiders winning. I do think the X factor, as previously mentioned, is a guy like Hunter Renfrow or a Foster Moreau. He's going to be the backup tight end. How well can he take over Darren Waller's role? The last time Darren Waller was out, Foster Moreau had 6 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. So Derek Carr is certainly going to be looking to those guys to help them overcome the Washington football team, get to 7-5, and remain in the AFC West. Speaking of the AFC West, we are going to talk about the Sunday night game now between the Denver Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs. And obviously, I touched upon earlier Denver's surprising win over the Los Angeles Chargers. I mean, this is a team to me that they started off 3-0 against a really weak opening schedule and have kind of floundered since, but they have pulled off some pretty nice wins and find themselves at 6-5 and have a chance at not just a wild card spot, but the AFC West. Of course, to win the AFC West, you've got to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And, the Chiefs have not been what we have come to expect. They're not the high-flying, explosive offense scoring 30, 40 points a game. But instead, they're finding different ways to win. Their defense has come along as of late over the past month. Even though the first month of the season, they were one of the worst defenses that perhaps I've seen in a very long time. But things have turned around significantly for them. And there's no reason why the Kansas City Chiefs defense can't play well again against a mediocre Denver offense led by Teddy Bridgewater. I know Javonte Williams in the backfield is playing decently well. But I'm just not sold on the Broncos long-term as a playoff contender. But they could shut me up and shut a lot of the naysayers up with a big win on the road in Kansas City. As for what I expect to happen in this game, I really don't see the Denver Broncos winning this one. They are 9.5-point underdogs. I know this has been a year of underdogs, but I do think the Kansas City Chiefs are playing way better. They're especially on the defensive side of the ball. It's going to take guys like Tim Patrick and Quillen Sutton really exposing this Chiefs defense, kind of making them have to revert back to where they were in the first part of the year for Denver to really have a good shot of winning this football game. I do think Patrick Mahomes is going to get it to their guys like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and just really be able to put it on the Denver Broncos. They'll have a nice crowd behind them in Arrowhead. I think this will be a game Kansas City wins. 31-17 is my prediction for the Chiefs to take firm control of the AFC West. Discuss in this week's Showdown Saturday episode is probably my game of the week. The New England Patriots going to Western New York to play the Buffalo Bills. This game's for first place in the AFC East and potentially for a lot more because the Buffalo Bills, they have gone from Super Bowl darlings to now kind of teetering on the edge of playoff contention. With as competitive as the AFC is, they can't really afford to lose a lot more games. And it's going to be a tough one for them, considering how well the New England Patriots have been playing. They started off 2-4 this season, but have reeled off 6 straight wins and are now atop of the AFC East and contending for the number 1 seed in the entire conference, which is insane considering they have a rookie quarterback in Mac Jones, who was leading Alabama last year to a national championship. But now he is by far the best of the rookie quarterbacks. Of course, there's a debate of whether or not how much a situation affects them, which clearly Mac Jones has the most stable situation. It's not hard to have the stable situation. You have a guy like Bill Belichick running your organization, and he is showing all of his defensive prowess this year. Mario Judon, the rest of the guys on that New England Patriots defense are just lining it up this year. They are playing out of the mind. Like that performance they had against the Atlanta Falcons 2 weeks ago on Thursday Night Football was amazing. They had 4 interceptions in that game off of 3 different quarterbacks, and they're just on fire right now. Of course, they beat my Tennessee Titans last week 36-13 in a game where the defense played very, very well against a bunch of practice squad players and Ryan Tannehill. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they can do against Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and the rest of the Bills' offense. And on the flip side, what can the Buffalo Bills defense do? Because this Bills defense early on this year was playing amazing themselves. They had 2 shutouts in the first month. Only, I believe, 8 other teams in NFL history have been able to do that. But they have not played up to that capability since then. And I think they're going to have to in this game to help their offense win, because they're going to struggle in this game against a really good Patriots team. And I just feel like it's going to be a good old slap down AFC East defensive showdown in Buffalo. And it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen in this game. And it just feels like this thing could go either way. It's 50-50. I'm going to go actually with the Bills here. I do trust Josh Allen more in a tight game than Mac Jones. I mean, no offense to Mac Jones, but he's a rookie, and we haven't seen him in a lot of tight games yet. We've seen him in some, but not a lot. Back in college, he wasn't in a lot of tight games then either. So I'll be curious to see what he does down the stretch here and in the playoffs, what type of consistency and production he can bring when it's clutch time. But Josh Allen, last year had a really good December and, playoff run to the AFC title game. And I trust him in a situation like this. And I think the Bills defense is going to play really well at home. I think they force Mac Jones to a rookie mistake or 2 at some point. And I think Josh Allen will find a way to play a clean game. I think this will be low scoring. I feel like it's going to come down to a field goal. I like Buffalo to win this game 20-17. And it's going to be a classic game, because this game is going to go a long way to determining who's going to win it all in that division. The over-under is going to be 41.5. So they're expecting a defensive game in Vegas. I am as well. 2017 is 37, so that's the under. I don't know if I would bet the under, because that is a low number. But I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be by far the best game of the week outside of Chargers and Bengals, which I think will be an entertaining game on the opposite side of the spectrum in terms of offensive scoring. Anyway, so that's what I'm expecting to happen in those 4 games. Of course, there's a whole other set of games for this week that will be interesting to watch and see how they unfold. We're going to try to do this every single Friday/Saturday. 4 games, 1 from each time slot as we get closer and closer to playoff time. And we're definitely going to expand the presence both here on the Sports Host NFL content page in terms of our video content, and on the Insta Review podcasting page, where this will also go up. And also feel free to catch our podcast live here on this YouTube channel on Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. You can just hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell, or you can watch us on Twitch or our Twitter page. All the links are down below. But for next time, I'm the host of the Interview Podcast, Nicholas Hill. Take care.